Jonas Markley was having what he considered a perfectly ordinary Tuesday evening. The rain hammered against his modest suburban home while he sat in his worn armchair, cradling a steaming cup of chamomile tea and watching the weather report. The forecaster, with increasingly dramatic hand gestures, warned of an incoming storm system that promised to be historically significant. Historically significant, Jonas muttered, sipping his tea. That's what they said about last month's storm, and all we got was a fallen branch and Mrs. Henderson's patio umbrella ending up in my azaleas. As if to prove the weatherman's point, a massive crack of thunder shook the house, causing Jonas to spill tea down his favorite sweater vest. He was in the middle of dabbing at the stain when an earth-shattering crash from the backyard made him drop the entire cup. Rushing to the back door, Jonas peered through the rain-streaked glass. His dilapidated garden shed, which had been threatening to collapse since 1987, had finally done so with spectacular timing. But that wasn't what made Jonas's jaw drop. No, it was the enormous scaled creature that had apparently crashed through the shed and was now lying amidst the splintered wood and scattered gardening tools. It was a dragon, an actual, honest-to-goodness dragon, about the size of a double-decker bus, its scales shimmering between emerald and sapphire in the stormlight. Smoke curled from its nostrils, mixing with the rain to create an ethereal mist around its massive form. Jonas pinched himself hard. The pain confirmed he wasn't dreaming, though he rather wished he were. "Well," he said, adjusting his rain-spattered glasses, "this isn't something they covered in the homeowner's insurance manual." The dragon let out a low, pitiful moan that made Jonas's heart clench despite his better judgment. As the rain continued to pour, he noticed a bluish liquid seeping from several gashes along the creature's flank. The dragon's breathing was labored, its massive chest heaving with each painful breath. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Jonas muttered, grabbing his umbrella and stepping into the downpour. As he approached, he realized the dragon was wearing what appeared to be a high-tech harness studded with blinking lights and strange symbols. The dragon's enormous eye swiveled to focus on him, and Jonas nearly dropped his umbrella. Hello there," he said, feeling utterly ridiculous. "You seem to be having a bit of trouble." The dragon responded with another groan, this one accompanied by a bluish foam around its mouth. Jonas's nursing training from 30 years ago kicked in, though he'd never expected to use it on a mythical creature. "Right, pain management," he said, rushing back into the house. He rummaged through his medicine cabinet, emerging triumphantly with a bottle of aspirin. Then he stared at it, realizing the absurdity of his situation. How many aspirin does a dragon need? He wondered aloud, squinting at the recommended dosage on the bottle. "Let's see, 2 tablets for an adult human. And you're about 20 humans? Maybe 25. In the end, he dumped the entire bottle into a bucket of warm water, stirring vigorously with a wooden spoon. Back in the yard, Jonas approached the dragon with his aspirin solution. "This might be completely insane," he admitted, "but it's all I've got." The dragon eyed the bucket skeptically, but, to Jonas's amazement, opened its mouth just wide enough for him to pour the liquid in. As the creature swallowed, the harness on its body suddenly flared with brilliant blue light. Several antennae extended from the device, emitting a series of high-pitched beeps. Jonas jumped back. "What in the world?" The dragon made a sound that Jonas could have sworn was contentment, settling its massive head on the wet grass. The bluish bleeding seemed to slow, and the creature's breathing became more regular. "Well," Jonas said, thoroughly soaked and completely bewildered, "I suppose that's that then." As he turned to go back inside, he failed to notice the harness sending out a powerful distress signal that penetrated Earth's atmosphere and traveled into deep space. The next morning, Jonas awoke to his alarm clock's insistent beeping. He stumbled out of bed, his mind fuzzy with sleep, and spent several minutes convincing himself that last night's events had been nothing more than an elaborate dream brought on by expired chamomile tea. Then he looked out his window. The garden shed was indeed destroyed, and a massive, dragon-shaped indent remained in the muddy ground where his azaleas used to be. But the dragon itself was gone, leaving only scorched earth and a lingering smell of ozone. I need coffee, Jonas decided, heading downstairs. A lot of coffee. He was halfway through his second cup when the doorbell rang. Grumbling about early morning visitors, Jonas shuffled to the door in his bathrobe and slippers. What he saw made him nearly drop his coffee mug. Standing on his front porch were 6 figures in sleek, metallic armor that seemed to shimmer and shift like liquid mercury. They carried weapons that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie, and their helmets displayed holographic heads-up displays with scrolling text in an alien script. Jonas Markley? The lead figure's voice was filtered through his helmet speaker, giving it an otherworldly quality. Yes, Jonas replied, wondering if he was still dreaming. Galactic Draconian Task Force, the figure announced, as if that explained everything. You are the human who administered acetylsalicylic acid to one of our quantum navigators during last night's electromagnetic storm event. Jonas blinked. I gave aspirin to a dragon, if that's what you're asking. The aliens exchanged what Jonas assumed were significant looks, though their helmets made it hard to tell. By doing so, the lead figure continued, you have inadvertently created a pharmacological link between yourself and Commander Zagarix. Under Article 47B of the Intergalactic Medical Intervention Protocol, this constitutes a binding diplomatic connection. A binding what now? Jonas sputtered. You must come with us, the alien stated. Your presence is required at the Central Draconian Assembly for protocol verification and connection documentation. Jonas's neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, chose that moment to walk by with her poodle. She waved cheerfully at Jonas and the armored figures, apparently seeing nothing unusual about the situation. Mrs. Henderson, Jonas called out, do you see these people? Oh yes, dear, she replied. New exterminators? Those silver suits look very professional. Finally doing something about those wasps, are you? The alien's armor apparently included some sort of perception filter that made them appear mundane to casual observers. Jonas wasn't sure if that made the situation better or worse. Look, he said, turning back to the aliens, I have to go to work. My boss is already angry about my recent absences, and if I miss another day, your terrestrial employment obligations are irrelevant, the lead alien interrupted. Commander Varys has declared this a matter of priority diplomatic status. Before Jonas could protest further, one of the aliens produced a device that looked like a cross between a smartphone and a microwave oven. He pointed it at Jonas, and suddenly the world twisted sideways. When reality reassembled itself, Jonas found himself standing on the bridge of what could only be a spaceship. Through the viewports, he could see Earth hanging like a blue marble against the star-strewn darkness of space. Welcome to Transfer Station Epsilon, announced a tall alien, removing his helmet to reveal a face that looked like a cross between a lizard and a particularly stern librarian. I am Commander Varys of the Galactic Draconian Task Force. This is kidnapping, Jonas protested weakly, still clutching his coffee mug. I demand to speak to someone. Technically, Commander Varys replied, consulting a holographic display. You are here as a diplomatic envoy. When you provided medical assistance to Commander Zagarix, you activated an ancient protocol. The combination of the electromagnetic storm and the specific molecular structure of acetylsalicylic acid created a quantum entanglement at the cellular level. All I did was give him aspirin. Jonas exclaimed. Precisely, Varys nodded. Which, under our laws, makes you an honorary member of the Draconian Medical Corps. Congratulations. Jonas was led through a series of corridors that seemed to defy conventional geometry, eventually arriving at a vast medical bay. There, lying on what appeared to be a floating bed made of pure energy, was the dragon from his backyard. The creature lifted its head and made a rumbling sound that Jonas's newly acquired translator device rendered as Aspirin person. Commander Zagarix expresses his gratitude, Varys explained. He also wants you to know that your intervention prevented a catastrophic plasma cascade in his neural matrix. I'm glad I could help, Jonas offered, feeling increasingly out of his depth. A team of alien medics swarmed around them, scanning Jonas with devices that beeped, whirred, and occasionally sang what sounded like show tunes. One particularly enthusiastic medic, who resembled a walking starfish, kept trying to take tissue samples until Varys shooed it away. Now, Varys said, producing a stack of holographic documents that made Jonas's eyes water just looking at them. We need you to sign these forms. Forms? Jonas echoed. Standard diplomatic paperwork, Varys assured him. Non-aggression pacts, medical intervention waivers, cultural exchange agreements, and, of course, the Aspirin incident report in triplicate. Jonas stared at the floating documents. And if I refuse? Then we'll have to classify the entire event as a hostile medical intervention, declare war on Earth, and probably destroy your planet, Varys said cheerfully. Standard procedure, I'm afraid. Jonas signed the forms. The next few hours were a blur of medical examinations, cultural sensitivity briefings, and what Jonas could only describe as space bureaucracy. He learned that the Draconian Alliance consisted of 12 different species, all of whom had strong opinions about the proper way to fill out incident reports. The most important thing to remember, explained Ambassador Silvani, a willowy alien with skin that changed color based on her mood, is that you're now Earth's official liaison to the Draconian Alliance. But I'm just an office worker, Jonas protested. I process insurance claims. The most exciting thing I usually do is argue with people about deductibles. And now you'll process insurance claims for interstellar incidents, Silvani replied brightly. Think of it as a promotion. Jonas was beginning to develop a migraine that no amount of aspirin could cure. After what felt like days, but was apparently only a few hours due to temporal dilation fields, Jonas was finally allowed to return to Earth. They gave him a wrist-mounted device that looked like a chunky digital watch, but apparently contained more processing power than all of Earth's computers combined. This will allow you to contact us in case of emergency, Varys explained. It also monitors your vital signs, translates alien languages, and makes an excellent cappuccino. And I just go back to my normal life? Jonas asked skeptically. Of course, Varys nodded. With occasional interruptions for diplomatic functions, medical emergencies, and the odd invasion attempt. Invasion attempt? Nothing to worry about, Silvani assured him. The Cretharians have been trying to invade Earth for centuries, but they keep getting distracted by your television broadcasts. They're particularly fond of reality cooking shows. Back on Earth, Jonas stumbled into his office 2 hours late, his hair still slightly singed from the teleportation process. His boss, Mrs. Halverson, glared at him over her reading glasses. Markley, this is the 3rd time this month you've been late. What's your excuse this time? Jonas opened his mouth to explain about dragons, aliens, and intergalactic medical protocols, then closed it again. Traffic, he said weakly. Traffic, Mrs. Halverson repeated flatly. In the middle of a Tuesday morning. Before Jonas could respond, his wrist device chirped. Ambassador Silvani's voice emerged, crystal clear. Jonas, we need you to mediate a dispute between the Zorgans and the Blatherians. Something about parking validation in the Andromeda sector. Jonas slapped his hand over the device. New phone, he explained to Mrs. Halverson's raised eyebrow, still figuring out the settings. That evening, exhausted and bewildered, Jonas collapsed onto his couch. He was just drifting off to sleep when a familiar rumbling filled his backyard. Peering out the window, he saw Zagarix, fully healed and magnificent, hovering above his ruined shed. Aspirin human, the dragon called out. I bring warnings. Jonas sighed and went to put the kettle on. It was going to be a long night. Over the next few weeks, Jonas's life became increasingly surreal. He attended his first intergalactic council meeting via hologram while pretending to be on a conference call at work. He mediated a dispute between 2 alien species over the proper pronunciation of Wednesday. He even helped draft Earth's first interstellar insurance policy, which included coverage for acts of deity-level beings and temporal paradox damage. The wrist device proved surprisingly useful, especially its cappuccino function, though it occasionally received alerts about unusual energy signatures in his vicinity. The Cretharians, true to Silvani's word, kept attempting half-hearted invasions, usually during primetime television hours. One morning, while reviewing claims at his desk, Jonas's device began emitting an urgent alarm. He excused himself to the bathroom, where he answered the call. "Jonas." Commander Varys's face appeared as a tiny hologram. "We have a situation. The Critharian extremist faction has discovered your connection to the Alliance. They're planning to use Earth as leverage for their expansion plans." "What do they want?" Jonas asked, trying to keep his voice down as someone entered the bathroom. "Access to your planet's acetylsalicylic acid supply," Varys replied grimly. "Apparently, it has unique properties when combined with certain alien physiologies." Jonas stared at the hologram. "They want to invade Earth. For aspirin, among other things," Varys admitted. "But the aspirin is surprisingly important. We need you at the emergency council meeting." "I'm at work," Jonas hissed. "I can't just disappear again." "The fate of your planet may depend on it," Varys said. Jonas sighed. "Fine, but you're writing me a doctor's note this time." The emergency meeting was held in the Grand Assembly Hall, a vast chamber that seemed to exist in several dimensions simultaneously. Jonas found himself seated at a massive table surrounded by alien dignitaries, trying to look like he belonged there. The Critharian representative, a being that looked like a cross between a squid and a tax auditor, presented their demands. "The humans possess resources vital to our expansion," it declared. "We demand unlimited access to their pharmaceutical supplies, particularly their acetylsalicylic acid compounds." "That's aspirin," Jonas muttered. "They're threatening galactic war over headache medicine." Ambassador Silvani leaned over. "In their physiology, aspirin acts as a powerful euphoric. They've been buying it on the black market for years." The debate raged for hours. Various factions argued about sovereignty, resource rights, and the proper way to file an invasion request form. Jonas's head spun with the complexity of intergalactic politics. Finally, he stood up. "May I say something?" The assembly fell silent. All eyes, or equivalent sensory organs, turned to him. "When I gave aspirin to Commander Zagarix," Jonas began, "I didn't know about protocols or quantum entanglement or any of this. I just saw someone in pain and tried to help. Isn't that what all this should be about? Helping each other." The Critharian representative scoffed. "Naive human sentiment." "Maybe," Jonas admitted, "but I have a proposal. Instead of invading Earth, why don't we set up a legitimate trade agreement? We can provide aspirin and other medications, and you can offer something in return. Technology, perhaps, or cultural exchange programs." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Jonas pressed on. "And if that works, maybe we can expand it. Create a proper alliance between Earth and the galactic community. Not because of some accident with a dragon and a bottle of pills, but because it's the right thing to do." The assembly erupted into discussion. After several hours of debate, voting, and filling out the appropriate forms, they reached a decision. "The council accepts the humans' proposal," announced the assembly chairman, "a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline structure. Earth shall be offered probationary membership in the Galactic Alliance, with Jonas Markley serving as interim ambassador." Jonas slumped in his chair, relief and exhaustion washing over him. He'd just prevented an alien invasion and secured Earth's place in the cosmic community. Not bad for a Tuesday. Back on Earth, life slowly adjusted to the new normal. The ruined garden shed was rebuilt with alien technology, becoming a small diplomatic outpost. Mrs. Henderson's poodle developed a fondness for Zorgan treats, and a local pizza place added Andromedan Special to their menu. Jonas kept his day job, though his responsibilities now included processing claims for meteor damage and alien abduction insurance. Mrs. Halverson never quite understood why he needed so many medical appointments, but she stopped questioning them after the office received a new coffee machine that made the best lattes in the galaxy. Zagarix visited regularly, usually to discuss the finer points of Earth culture or to request more aspirin for his colleagues. The dragon had developed a particular fondness for game shows and often quoted them during diplomatic functions. One quiet evening, as Jonas sat on his porch enjoying a cup of tea, his wrist device chimed softly. A message scrolled across the display. "Remember to keep aspirin handy. You never know who might need it." Jonas smiled, looking up at the stars that no longer seemed so distant. Sometimes, he reflected, the smallest acts of kindness could change the universe. Even if that act was giving aspirin to a dragon during a thunderstorm. As he finished his tea, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Or perhaps it was just another Cretharian ship arriving to watch the season finale of their favorite cooking show. In Jonas's new world, it was often hard to tell the difference. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, in the grand archive of the Galactic Alliance, a file was updated. First contact with Earth, successful. Method, pharmaceutical intervention. Status, ongoing. The end.